Hi, I'm Alexia, and my group is Shayna, Andrew, Josh, and Spencer. And our project was on drugs and alcohol. So we went to Beit Shuva, the rehab, and asked people like what their struggles were and what the hardest part about their jobs were at at the rehab, and what their how they got help, and if they were told to get help or if they asked for help, and like what their story was and their experience. It was a very great experience. It was very touching, and we all learned a lot from it, and we hope you guys do too.
Put everybody in a box and say, okay, you're all a bunch of drunks or a bunch of addicts, and you should all be treated one way. We're very individual. So a big part of our process is when we're assessing people is what they've gone through and what their needs might be as far as a treatment plan. We are a 4-month in length program, standard, and there's exceptions, like I said, because we're so individual. So the first 3 months is the beginning parts of recovery. It's stopping using, learning how to not pick up drugs or alcohol. And we even have gambling and sex addictions, and every addiction actually A to Z here. And then the 4th month is about advanced groups and how do we take what we've learned outside the doors of Beit Shuva and integrate them into our business life or social life, if you will. So we have transitions here that are called like sober living, where the person, after they had the initial treatment, go back to work, let's say, and then when they come back home at night, they're still a part of the community. They can talk with the other residents and they're here. They can still have their counselor, and they're able to process this stuff. We don't want people just to walk out the door after they had 4 months of treatment with no plan.
The work Beit Shuva does is similar to the mitzvah portrayed in Ketubot 67b, section F2. In the text, a man that is receiving 400 zuz of charity from Mar Ukava is caught pouring wine on the floor, but Mar Ukva gives him more money, not less after this. He does this because he knows that the man is only pouring wine on the floor so that he doesn't feel poor. This is similar to what Beit Shuva does, because Beit Shuva offers all the sorts of regular activities, such as surfing, so that people feel that they are normal. They accept everyone and they make them feel good. When people check into Beit Shuva, they are treated as highly as guests with privileges, not just drug addicts. This is the way they're allowed to feel like normal people as they're getting helped and treated.
At Beit Shuva, people get assigned a spiritual counselor, and that's to help with not just the religious part of the program, but it's also to read spirituality books and based in spirituality. They get a drug and alcohol counselor to help them with those issues, and they get a therapist. So there's a really good treatment team that they get here at Beit Shuva.
You don't have to you can just say.
I use drugs and alcohol. I first drank when I was 13 years old, and I didn't know it at the time, but at the time I took that drink, alcohol basically, in the beginning, became the answer to the way I felt. And once again, I didn't recognize that it wasn't solving my problems. It was just an answer to the way I felt at the moment. And I pursued that for 30 years after that. And it was really just an excuse for me to keep using. So I worked to make money in order to keep getting loaded, right? And my marriage was just because she was pretty and made me feel better. Once again, an outside stimulus trying to fix something that was still so wrong on the inside of me. So I showed up at Beit Shuva at 43 years old, and not having a clue or understanding anything about addiction or anything about my disease. My body responds differently to alcohol than somebody that doesn't have addiction. I had a predisposition, nobody in my family drank, experimented, but then were able to stop. They had the tools to stop, or they just didn't have the allergic reaction that I have when I drink alcohol. It's the best way to say that. So there's some things that are actually not in our control.
First of all, what was it that kind of made you start drinking when you were younger, like at 13 years old?
Well,
why weren't you happy? Really? Were you not happy when you said you saw?
No. In the beginning, it wasn't like I said. That's in the beginning. It was just recreational. We broke into my parents' liquor cabinet, and we got drunk at 13 years old, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And we were just having fun and experimenting, and it was, there was that piece that I said earlier that I didn't understand why everybody was happy, but I mean, the actual start of the whole thing was really kind of innocent. But after I took the drink, I did say, wow, this changes the way I feel,
Yeah.
right? And so then I got loaded the next day again too. You know what I mean? And like I said, day after day, that became the answer. Yes, I do like my job. It's a very rewarding thing to be able to give back. When I first got here, I was broken. I had no life, as I told you earlier. Pretty much hit bottom. Owed a bunch of money, owed amends to everybody in the world, all the people I had harmed. And today, 13 and a half years later, I come to work. I love my job. I've done teshuva, which is the main basis of this house. So I made amends to everybody that I had harmed. I've cleaned up.
What's the hardest thing about working here? And what's like
The hardest thing for me in my job is talking to parents, significant others, and because of how full we always are and the waiting list that I have, not being able to help everybody. It's heartbreaking. And I talk to parents and significant others. Nobody gets there when it's working. Nobody gets there when the drugs and the alcohol or the sex or the gambling is still working. They get here when they've hit bottom. So they're desperate, they're scared to death, you know what I mean? And sometimes I can't help everybody, and that's the hardest. And this is a very spiritual place. This is a community. It's not just a rehab.
So what kind of how did everything start? Like what caused you to, what caused your
To
problem?
come to Beit Teshuva?
Yeah.
I'd had time sober before. I had almost 4 years sober, and my life got really crazy again and unmanageable, and I started using drugs again. And a really close friend of mine is a big part of this community, and I called him for help one day, and he suggested that I come check in here, and I was really scared to do it. But I came in and met with Harold, and Harold explained to me how the program is, and I just knew when I walked through the doors here that this was where I needed to be.
And how old were you when you first started drugs?
I started smoking weed when I was 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So
Was there a reason? Or just for fun?
at that age, yeah, it just started out for fun. My friends were doing it, and it's just something I fell into. It got really dark around 18 years old, and that's when everything started to get really crazy for me.
And how do you like it here?
I love Beit Teshuva. I really love this place. It's really, it hasn't just saved my life, it's changed who I am as a person. I've learned so much here about not just how to physically get sober again, meaning take the drugs and the alcohol away and I'm physically sober, but an emotional and spiritual awakening through being sober this time. And the rabbi teaches us about how to live well, and that's not a concept that I really instilled in my life at all before. And the lessons that I've learned here through the teachings of the rabbi and the counselors here and the staff and the residents too, the way everyone comes together as a family and a community has been, it's just had the biggest impact and change in my life, and I really love being here.
On Leviticus 25, 35, 38 says that if your kinsman being in straits comes under your authority and you hold him as a resident alien, let him live by your side. Beit Teshuva upholds this mitzvah because they provide a place where they can take in people in need and provide them a home. They support these people who need help and allow them to get back on their feet.
You don't have to be Jewish to get in here or to be a resident here or work here. It's just a principle, it's a philosophy of the way they teach based on Judaism.
And the Torah study in the morning, is that a mandatory thing?
It's mandatory for primary residents. Yeah.
I'm a low bottom IV, heroin, crystal meth, and crack user. You know, I do drugs like a madman. I'm Jewish. I mean, I was born Jewish, was raised Jewish. Definitely not the Jewish thing to do is go and get strung out on drugs and get covered in tattoos. But this is one place you can definitely find it. You know, I knew that, and like it's a very comfortable setting for somebody who comes from. People come from backgrounds that drugs aren't a part of their family history or just completely unacceptable. It's a very safe place to come to. So
Yeah.
maybe
And-
it happens.
And how old were you when you started using drugs?
I mean, I started smoking pot when I was like 12, 13. I didn't start. I mean, I started using hard drugs when I was like 21.
Do you feel that a lot of people start from pot and expand, or do you feel that pot is not addictive?
It is what happened. I started with weed, and eventually the weed stopped working, and then it became, the alcohol or the cocaine, and eventually put a needle in my arm.
So the weed stopped, like you didn't feel anything because it just eventually stops.
I mean, you feel something, but eventually you smoke so much pot that you just, it doesn't take any effect on you anymore.
Wow.
You know? Yeah, I've got a steady place to stay now. Before this, I was on the street jumping around from place to place, so it's already a thing. So
Affect the people around you.
I mean, it destroys the people around you. I don't know if any of you have had anybody in your family or any close friends get really into drugs, but it's like eventually the people who are closest to you don't want to be anywhere near you. They don't want to have anything to do with you because they can't cope with it anymore. It destroys. My using not only destroyed my life, but it without a doubt took a major negative toll on everyone around me. My friends, my family, relationships.
Do you think we should ask anything of like how Beit Tshuva helped?
Well, I mean, like, he just came in today. That was probably
Yeah.
the other person.
That's true. Alright, thank you.
The type of charity that Beit Tshuva does is considered to be one of the highest forms of charity according to Maimonides' ladder. They not only provide financial support for these people, but help them in many ways. They provide a safe place for them to recover, as well as strengthen them through a recovery program. Beit Tshuva also helps former addicts find a job once they are ready to leave.